Get started. Welcome to the pre-professional personal statement workshop for EY26. We host these every year, obviously, because not that the information is necessarily new or novel, but because we don't want to do information overload and we provide support as you need it. So this workshop is, we're going to have a couple presented, myself, a representative from LDL, and we have someone here from the Writing Center as well, who will give some overviews of different support systems that we built in this personal statement process. Next, hold on. Okay, tell me if the slide, no? It's not moving? Oh, that's because I don't have the plan. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know how that happened. Exit out of this. Okay. All right. So in the confirmation email, whether you registered to be online or you are here in person, we gave you directions about watching a preliminary video. Just in like the alignment of like a flipped classroom process, we wanted to make sure that you thought about a couple things before you came in. I don't think a personal statement process is very new to anybody in the room because you're here in college and you had to do some form of it to get where you are. However, when you're applying to health professions programs, it can be very different, right? So depending if you're applying MD, MD, PhD, pre-vet, do you have any pre-vet in the room? Or online, maybe, okay. Dentistry, the objective is not just to talk about who you are in an autobiography type of format, but it is to communicate your intentions for the desired field, right? And so the video that we provided, though recorded a while back by the Writing Center, is still very much accurate in the purpose of your personal statement. The video discussed the personal statement being like this personality profile where you are able to discuss characteristics, qualities, and attributes that you hope to convey. I put 3 to 6 here just because you have such a restricted character limit, particularly when it comes to any of the health professions applications. You want to make sure that you're not trying to fit all of your 20-something year of life into this, what is it, 5,300 characters, right? And so the goal is to choose the most representative characteristics or attributes or events and then consolidate them in a pitch-like format where you are then communicating who you are, right? And then also your intentions for the future. So the use of the primary app as a whole, right? You have different sections in the primary application, your work and activity, and then your personal statement. The hope is that your personal statement will use examples that you have probably referred to or listed out in the work and activities, but that section serves as evidence for your primary application in the way that the personal statement may not, right? So using experiences is great so that you can contextualize your traits and characteristics, qualities, etc. But the list of work and activities is really meant to help you delineate what your role was, the things that you've accomplished, the skills that you developed, right? So even though there will be overlap, there shouldn't be repetition. Some other tips was your personal statement does not have to contain medical experiences exclusively. This is probably the one place where you get to bring in quite a bit of historical information that precedes your collegiate experiences, right? So if there were childhood experiences or experiences in your youth or earlier developmental family experiences that you believe are very instrumental to the reasons why you come to Hopkins or your pursuit for medicine, that is the place where you get to bring those things in. Do not get too deep into the weeds on topics. This is not a creative writing experience, really. right? So sometimes the very high details of what someone had on, unless very relevant to the narrative or play by play, is probably not the best use of characters when you're so limited, right? So as you learn to tell your story, also think about what details are really important to make sure the reader understands what it is I'm trying to convey. There is the show, don't just tell principle, you want to use actions and descriptions. I have some examples later about using active verbs that I will give some actual examples of things you can be careful about as you write to make sure you're showing your actions, and not just say, I am X, Y, Z, but then showing how you are through your actions instead. Don't, oh no, depth over breadth. So, because you have a lot to talk about, a lot of students struggle with how much is too much or how deep do I need to go? You do want to prioritize depth over trying to talk about everything, because at the end of the day, it is about meaningful, right? So you want to illustrate and use examples instead of trying to cover everything. Sorry, all of the font is really small no matter where I go, so I might have to. Okay, avoid giving a lot of space to address academic and personal challenges. So in the pre-med application, particularly the AMCAS, they have a section called impactful statement. Other health professions applications have it, they might call it something like disadvantage statement. I think a lot of people have moved away from that language and use like impactful experience or other or something like that. We tell students when there is some context you want to build around your distance traveled, we encourage you to use the impactful statement section for that, and really use your personal statement to highlight your resilience and things like that. So we can always help you with that balance through advising and drop-ins and things like that. But know that you have a space to talk specifically about challenges that may have impacted you from birth till current. Whereas your personal statement, unless it directly correlates to your intentions for medicine, you don't necessarily need to dedicate characters to that. Focus on yourself, show how you felt, how you think, how you react. So that one's good about storytelling as well. Sorry, I need to move this. Okay. So in Pre-Health 201, if you've taken that, or even my intercession class, we talk a lot about becoming a distinctive applicant. And the idea is that we really want pre-health students to move away from the unicorn mentality or trying to find creative ways to stand out amongst the pool, right? The hope is that as you go through and you think about who you are, what you've accomplished, what you've done in the classroom, in and out of the classroom, I should say, taken together with your academic curiosities and interests, as well as your thinking, reasoning, and scientific inquiry, as that overlaps, you will become this distinctive applicant naturally, okay? I tell people all the time, the only time I've had applications that looked really, really alike was when I was an advisor to twins, right? Their backstories was identical, but interestingly enough, they still had nuances because of how they processed it. And then the experiences they had in their own spaces, even if they were doing it together, was internalized different. So my encouragement is if twins can do it, y'all can do it, okay? So this concept of becoming a distinctive applicant is something that we try to also encourage in advising sessions. So if you're having you want to kind of practice thinking about how all of these things piece together, you can also support you in that. This is also part of the distinctive mentality, right? So in your personal statement, you are, as an individual, a combination or overlap or intersectional being, right? That where you make, what makes you up is your academic curiosities, your own personal identities and values, your impactful experiences, the collegiate experiences. Now, this is sometimes where the greatest overlap is because you're here together, right? But then why you chose to engage with something or how it's been meaningful will likely look a lot different. And then past personal experiences are all. And I can tell you, we read a lot of personal statements, And it is not the case of where we see two personal statements that look just alike. Your experiences are distinct enough where you come from and why you decided to be here, even though sometimes similar in reasons, when it's all put together, it is your personal story. So the personal statement process, I like to think of it is since the time that you enter Hopkins, the hope is that you have engaged in activities, opportunities, both in and out of the classroom here in the Baltimore area, as well as wherever you call home. And so you're going to then review your experiences, and you want to, hopefully, you've been doing this over time, but if not, this is the time to really think about not just what you did, but why you did it, right? Reflect on the value add to your portfolio. Also, then you want to connect to the professional competencies. I'm going to talk about this a little more deeply in a few slides after we have LTL in the Writing Center. But remember that the professional competencies that AAMC provides, as well as other health professions that have similar, I think dentistry, they, on their website, they legit just like reference AAMC's competencies, and then they add manual dexterity. So you can use the AAMC competencies delineate the way that they delineate it as almost like a rubric, right? Because that's what medical schools are doing. What they may prioritize or what they might look for might depend on their mission and vision. But generally, they are all using that as an evaluative measure of whether or not you are either a fit or you are ready, essentially, to enroll in medical school. So another part that we're going to actually do a little bit today is start to do some reflection, and then also looking for themes, right? You don't have to work this overworked theme aspect, but there is thematic build that can help bring order and organization to your application. So not everything has to be overly connected. You can have experiences that are just, I just really love these things. But it is good to have kind of these ideas that I'm an educator and these are the ways that I've exhibited it. I also believe I'm an advocate and these are the ways that I've exhibited these things, right? So the idea is for you to look through your experiences, reflect on the meaningfulness of them, and then see if you see any thematic connections between them. Learn how to use experiences to support your why medicine. And so in the personal statement, you can't talk about every 15 of your experiences that you have in your work and activities. It is not wise to do so. So you're going to have to think about which experiences are best to expand on or give a different vantage point inside of your personal statement. So you have to negotiate that space a little bit, but know that you will often have some level of your experiences reflected in your personal statement too as evidence. So the question now is where are you in the process? Have you even thought about the personal statement? Is today your first step towards the personal statement development? That's okay, because we're here to talk about how to move forward and what resources you'll have. If you've already had some thought about this and you have conversations with an advisor, or you've already sat with the Writing Center in the past, that's also fine. So we want to talk about opportunities for you to engage with this. So the Life Design Lab was, I don't see him here. So I'm not gonna go overly deep on this. And maybe they can do a snippet video. Let me just see. They presented on it last year, and I think I can do a quick overview. Has anybody sat with a life design coach? No? Okay, so the Life Design Center is, or Life Design Department is essentially your career services, right? It's the structure in which you are able to sit with someone and talk about your intentions. I know a lot of you sit in this room is like, I know I want to be a doctor, that is my career trajectory, but there's a lot of things that you could also, you will need to, like, if you're taking a gap year or you're getting a job, they help with resume building. They can also help you think through and brainstorm through different components of your application, as well as helping you build connections and meetings. So the life design, when you sit with a life design coach, they are going to operate in some of these principles in life design, which is getting curious, imagining possible lives, right? So even though being a physician is the job that you're hoping to do as a physician, how do you hope to serve your community? So the things that you, when you imagine possible lives, the question is can you live multiple lives in one, like throughout your journey as a professional, right? So then there's also like the idea of experience more, meaning like lean towards action, be someone who is willing to leave room for the uncertain, the things that are not planned, to learn from them and then iterate what your path looks like from there. And then again, craft your story, and also as you craft it, learn how to tell it. Because one thing is that it's great when you have all of these things, but if you don't learn how to gel them together and persuade others, essentially the process of whether it's writing your personal statement or even later interviewing, you need to learn how to tell your story and also convince people you are ready for the next step, whatever you're being assessed for. I'm not even gonna pretend I know everything they were trying to do in this slide, but I do know that Ikigai is a philosophy, I think Japanese. Yes, okay. Where you are in search for your a greater purpose, right? So the hope is that you look at the things that you love, the things that you're passionate about, the things that you hope that you're good at, and also what the world needs, and then you can find your ikigai in the midst of that, right? And so when we ask you why medicine, you're essentially doing this process. I know that there is a book on this that you could actually read, but also I'm sure YouTube has everything and there's a synopsis, because that's what I also do. Okay, the life design support is like this. They have drop-in hours Monday through Thursday, 1 to 5 at the Imagine Center or virtually. You can meet with a life design educator by you can see by your major on their website. They have different advisors depending on your major as well. You can explore opportunities within and beyond medical school. Again, you can be a physician who is an instructor and a teacher. You can be a physician who's a public health worker, right? It doesn't confine you only to being a physician. Getting feedback on your personal statement and other professional documents is also a service that they provide. So we encourage you to use them. Okay, writing stuff. We are going to.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia. I'm a PhD student in the Department of Modern Languages and Literatures, and I'm also a tutor in the Writing Center. So I'm here on behalf of the Writing Center just to share some pieces of general writing advice that are also applicable to personal statements, and then also to encourage you to make an appointment in the Writing Center, both to work on your personal statements and also to bring in any sort of writing, piece of writing that you're working on. Does everyone know where the Writing Center is? Yes? Gilman, right next to the reading room? Excellent. This one. Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So these are all tips really to help you just sort of get words on the page. The idea being that it's easier to work on a draft of something if there are already words on the page, even if those words aren't particularly polished. So first, the first piece of advice is to free write, make a mess, play in the mud. You can do this in a lot of different ways. You can try a sort of stream of consciousness activity where you sort of set a timer and then kind of put the pen down or put your fingers on the keyboard and then sort of don't take them off until the timer goes off. Even if you end up writing like, I don't know what to write next a couple times in a row, that's totally fine. The idea is that again, you're looking for little bits and pieces that then you can take into your more polished pieces of writing. Along with that, we definitely recommend ignoring sentence level concerns in your sort of first draft. Also, the idea to have a sort of zero draft before you get into your first draft is something that we recommend. I find myself, honestly, that the idea of a first draft can be kind of intimidating, even though I know that it's a first draft. The fact that it's a draft, it feels like I sort of need to have a certain level of polish that really isn't necessary. So I find it very liberating to start with like a zero draft, or I like to call it a trash draft, because I find that sort of even more freeing to just write bad words on the page with the hopes that some of the words will eventually turn out to be good or useful. But definitely in those early drafts, you should feel free to ignore, you know, any sort of need for polish. The idea is to kind of get the ideas down and then make them sound good in the later drafts. Commenting on your writing in brackets or in italics in a different font can also be really helpful. I talk to myself in brackets in my drafts all the time. The idea here is also that, like, sometimes it can be helpful to write about what you want to write first, rather than going immediately into what you want to write. So if you need to write a sentence, you can't figure out how to start, open a bracket, say, this sentence needs to be about how, when I was in high school, I did this activity and kind of, and gained X, Y, and Z from the experience. And usually I would say maybe like half the time, by the end of that sort of sentence that's only supposed to be about the real sentence you want to write, you find that you've actually started to write the real sentence. So again, it can be sort of helpful, another way to kind of like trick yourself into doing the writing that you eventually need to do. And then lastly, write to understand what you want to say. We find that it's really helpful to think about writing as part of the process of coming to your own understanding of, again, what you want to say. You shouldn't feel like you need to sort of go into a piece of writing already knowing what you want to write. Getting the words onto the page is part of your own ability to understand what you're trying to convey. And the fact that you are kind of undertaking that process yourself will then make the writing clearer to whoever is going to be reading it. So if you come into the writing center and if you bring a piece of writing with you, or even if you just bring sort of an idea for a piece of writing, we can give you more specific, personalized advice. So this is the Writing Center schedule. We work Sunday through Thursday from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. We serve current students and alumni, and you can make appointments either in person or online. Not every tutor works both in person or online, but if you go to the website, you'll be able to see who's available in which modality. The tutors come from a range of disciplines. They come from a range of backgrounds. We have undergraduate tutors, we have graduate tutors, we have a couple of postdocs tutoring. If you want to work with someone who's in your area of specialization, then you can do that. That's obviously very helpful for some things. Also, if you want to work with someone who has no familiarity with your discipline, that can also be helpful for certain things, especially if you know that your application or your piece of writing is going to be read by kind of a range of readers, both people with specialization in that area and also sort of more generalists. It can be helpful to have someone who doesn't have that expertise read your statement to make sure that it's clear. And then here are the dates that we're open. So these are our like regular spring semester dates. And then we're also open during finals week this year, which I believe has not always been the case. And then we also have online appointments available throughout the summer. Appointments are 45 minutes. And like I said, you can bring in a piece of writing at any stage. You can bring in, I've had people come in with like nearly a final draft that they just want like an extra pair of eyes on it before the due date. I've also had people come in with like, 2 bullet points and a dream. And it will change what we do in the session, but you'll be able to get something out of it no matter what. So yeah, this is the website where you can make an appointment. We have a question. Should I take a question there? Yeah.
I was just wondering, how do you find out who's your favorite?
So if you go on the Writing Center website, each person will have like a brief bio listed alongside their name on the schedule. And we try to put like what our background is and what kind of, what sorts of writing we're used to working on. Yeah. I'll be around afterwards if anyone has any more questions, but I do really encourage you to come in. I work in the writing center, like I said, I have an appointment with another tutor literally tomorrow to work on something, so I really can't recommend it enough. I think I'm gonna turn it off and then turn it back on, so I don't. Noise.
Okay. All right, everybody online still okay? Do we have any questions worth answering right at this point?
I do not see any questions right now.
Okay, then we will proceed. Okay, so, pre-professional obviously is one of the, main, participants in this process because you also receive a committee letter, through the services we have, right? So outside of what is required for the committee letter and outside of our duty to support you in your application process is our personal statement review process. And we, in our minds, we try to separate those things because in the sense that we are not, you don't get the same advisor that's doing everything for you in every process, right? In every step of the process. So we want to give you overall what to expect from a pre-professional when it comes to their personal statement review and how that might differ from advising sessions that you may be able to have, or discussing things, other documents and materials that are part of the application, such as the HPA and things like that. So, oh, I don't jump to that part yet, so it's the next slide. So, I should say, what does pre-professional help you do? Our main goal in the personal statement development process is to help you clarify your why. So, thank you, Sophia, again, for talking about, the process of writing doesn't look the same for everyone, and so don't expect yourself to have, the perfect piece in the first, time you write it, right? Or the first, draft that you write. Which I'm sure you don't expect that because you have classes and things that you're writing for and you know what's the process, right? But also remember that there are probably 5 different versions of your personal statement that can get you to your health profession just fine. Okay? Your personal statement is an important aspect of your application, but I can tell you, meh, personal statements got into medical, right? So, or that's just more of So the question becomes is it clear? Does it communicate with accuracy, what you said you have done and congeal it in a way that someone can say, I see that, right? I would say in terms of, where's, I would say institutions, most medical schools particularly, because we talk a lot with medicine, they really look at those evidence-based those activities and those secondaries for fit, right? The personal statement is a nice contextual piece, but it's not gonna make or break your application. So I want to like normalize the struggle of having to write about yourself and your experiences, but also letting you know there are probably multiple versions of your personal statement that you really say it's done, okay? So let go of the perfection mentality. Oh, okay, so how do you clarify your why? Give your listener and reader a sense of who you are, and through your statement, you're going to communicate your values, strengths, qualities, and characteristics. You're gonna answer some of these questions. And I actually encourage students to free write these things without trying to make it perfect. And these are great pieces that you can take to the writing center, continue that brainstorming, or like I like to call it dig for gold, look for the things that you have written out that you're like, okay, this is actually a great sentence or a great paragraph that meets my intentions, right? So, ask yourself, how do my values align with my interests in becoming a physician? What are those values? Whether they were ingrained in me early childhood or things that I learned through experiences in my adulthood, what are they? What are things you are good at or enjoy that you believe will help you be an effective physician, and how? The goal to answer why is also to answer a broader question of why medicine and not why a specialty. So, a lot of times I have students when they're trying to build those somatic pieces, they'll say, I really love cardiology, and I see myself being a cardiologist or surgeon or a very specified field. Your goal is to get into medicine or dentistry, and then the specialization process is a process that happens there, right? So it's okay to have interest, intellectual curiosity, have experiences that have allowed you to gain a broad or in-depth experience with that area within medicine, but no one's personal statement that was only written about cardiology is more convincing than someone who just says how they able to serve people within medicine. So, make sure that your experiences are not necessarily trying to convince someone of your intentions in a specialty, because they're just looking for how it has shaped your perspective and what it means to be a physician. Also make sure you're clear about the hopeful outcome or the vision for your future, in that space. So, i.e. medicine, industry, etc. You can answer the question of, do you hope or want to hope to accomplish, what do you hope to accomplish as a physician in the field of healthcare? So, the next step is also to demonstrate how you've done this. Right, so, I like to encourage students to think about the fact that admissions doesn't tend to admit people off of what they believe people will become, but what they have evidence of who they are and whether or not they will continue to be that, right? So, you need to really focus in on what you have evidence for, and make sure that whatever claims you're making in your personal statement, you are able to defend through your experiences, at least to some degree. So pre-proc support, students will have two options, in order to get feedback. You will be able to schedule an appointment or have an online review, and I'm gonna delineate what difference that is in the next slide. The personal statement review process will begin April 1, so we will not be giving feedback on personal statements. So even if you wanna talk about a personal statement and you have an appointment before April 1, we will not do a formal review, or we're gonna count it as your review. All right, last year we had 430 or so applicants for the cycle. We can't fit more than one review. We have to prepare ourselves that all 400 of you will want feedback. We actually only had about 200 and I think 220, maybe closer to 300 that actually asked for feedback in some way, right? And when I say only, it was actually 10. So, but we encourage students to use this, and we will find a way to give every single student at least one review, but we cannot do more than one. Hence the reason we have leaned on our departments like Writing Center and LDL to also provide additional support, right? So personal statement reviews will end May 31st, 11:59 p.m. And when I say be stuck to that, once it's said June 1st, anybody below that is not get a review, okay? But we have to turn around and write a committee, right? So, we have to have a very tight window. So the two options here. Okay. A lot of words, but important that you read. All right, so pre-proc should only review your close to final draft. And you should have your initial drafts read by LDL and the Writing Center. Definitely the Writing Center, if no one else. The two options you have, the first option is for a one-on-one appointment. You would need to submit a copy of your personal statements to the advisor whom you made the appointment with. So when you make your appointment, you should be able to easily email us. We're in the Hopkins system, and you would need to email us at least 2 business days. Business days, what days are business days? Monday through Friday. I know y'all do work on Friday and Saturday, but we're not. Okay, so if you have an appointment on Monday, 2 business days would be to send your personal statement by. Someone answer. Wednesday, right? So Thursday, Friday would be the 2 business days, and then our next one would be a Monday, right? So for those that have Monday appointments, know that you don't want to plan that you want to do it on Sunday before your appointment, unless you just hope that we are reading it as we're giving feedback to you in person. So it will compromise the level of feedback that we can give if we do not receive it within that time, right? So we've carved out time to be able to read it, so that the time in the session is spent on having a discussion about your personal statement and the comments we have. The second option is for online review, where you do not meet with an advisor. And that's okay, where we provide comments. I've done voice notes sometimes because my hands get tired. So it doesn't mean that a voice note versus just comments is any better. It's just whoever reviewed it and gave you comments in that way, and then you will get an email response with those comments or that voice note accompanied with any written documentation on the personal statement. So for this one, we have explicitly asked you, we have a, we actually have a Google form where you fill out some information and then you upload your document to it. That's gonna get emailed to you after this session, not tonight, but by Friday. It will, or I should say next week, because really you can't submit anything until the first. So we will definitely send this out continually through SMA. The directions will be on SMA, on the SMA platform. We'll email it through the listservs. Y'all probably be sick of us because I usually send it probably every other week, or at least a few times, so that you know that it's coming. But you're going to have to allow for 5 to 7 business days for advisors to review the sent drafts back to you, okay? I will say, if you submit a personal statement on May 31st, you will not get it until 5 to 7 business days after that, right? So I know that when people start getting close to where the application is open, our policy is still our policy, and we still 5 to 7 business days to return personal feedback. So if you submit it at that very end date, it's gonna still, you won't get your personal statement feedback until a week later. So just plan for that. Yes.
So since there's the rule that you can only make one appointment every 3 months, if you have another appointment requested for other parts of the application, like perhaps like school risk review, that disqualify you from booking one for personal statement?
You said once every 3 months?
Isn't
Once every 4 weeks. Yeah, so I think that even if someone had an appointment on March 30th, they should still be able to make an appointment before we end it, because we have appointments until the end of May. So every 4 weeks would mean, and I will say we will be prioritizing our EY26 applicants for April and May in terms of appointment slots. So those appointment slots probably are not open yet. I don't think any of the advisors has opened their schedules yet, specifically because we're going to have blocks open for those applying in EY26. Okay.
Sorry. And if for like committee letters, do you work on them as a group or individually? Because if there's an advisor who had multiple appointments with, is it possible to request that advisor from a letter to individual process?
No, I wish we could, but it is a brawl. We're just getting through them. I can't even say like, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's by chance. But yeah, it's because we time it based upon completion. It's kind of like who has room for them, and then we're trying to push them out. So we can't do requests, at least not now with the staff that we have. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, MD PhD. So remember that for MD PhD, you're gonna have a YMD PhD and a research essay as well. So this service is separate from the personal statement review. So be sure to read this process specifically. So if you are MD PhD and you want to get feedback, we actually did not have many students who utilized this resource last year. It's kind of sad. But there is a process where you would submit your MD PhD essay and significant research essay, and then you would essentially be paired with a postdoc. We have put together a list of people who are willing to support PhDs in reviewing some of their essays and materials. And then, you're given subsequent details after that. So, following this, and this information will be also on SMA and in the email, so that you can get this separate review from a personal statement, understanding that you have multiple pieces of it. Any questions about that? Okay, so the question now is, okay, perfect. Personal statement feedback timeline. You can use the Writing Center at any point in the process, and we encourage you go a couple times. I know that there's spaces of time, like a certain amount of appointments you can have within a space of time,
I
but
think it's like you can have like up to 2 per week.
per week,
Yeah,
right?
so it's
So they are much more equipped to handle a high request and multiple requests. So use them throughout this whole process. And there's actually hours.
Okay, friends, it does look like Zuri left us. So I'm gonna go on mute real quick. I'm gonna call Zuri, who is in the room right now, and hold tight, okay? All right, friends. Turns out the battery died. So they will be right back. In the meantime, however, I will answer 1 or 2 questions. I know I had a person who asked about resources. I'm gonna wait till Zuri comes back for that. Examples of questions I can bring to HPA drop-ins. So I think the key thing first is con cariño, nothing that'll take more than 10 minutes. So for example, I can't read over your entire HPA during drop-ins, but if you have a question about, say, like, what should I put for this activity? How do I put shadowing on here? I don't understand this essay question. What do I do? That's the kind of thing that you can bring to HPA drop-ins. All right, Zuri, can you hear me?
Muted. Yes, I can, and I am back. I am sorry, y'all.
I'm scared. We were scared. We cried a lot.
Okay, let me go back to. All right, so everybody can see everything? Okay, lessons learned, don't present without your laptop plugged up because the battery life is a lie. Okay. Alrighty, there I am. Okay, so what's the last thing everyone heard? Use the Writing Center. Lessons, okay, cool. In terms of our feedback process, it's definitely more limited in terms of timing. And so we encourage you to plan ahead. We know that you have finals and you have other responsibilities, but definitely try to not wait. Last year, I remember there was like 100 personal statements submitted right around graduation week, and we had to turn around and tell people, now you need 7 to 10 business days because it was only myself and the director, right? Thankfully this year we have wonderful advisors who have joined us since last summer. And so we will be able to hopefully stick to our deadlines, but also don't wait till the last. Okay. So this portion of the session is just going to help us orient ourselves like, okay, I don't want you to walk out here feeling overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, you're giving me all these timelines and deadlines and I don't really know where to start. So we're going to start doing some brainstorming. Okay. So if you don't already have your laptop out, I love it. If you have an iPad, some kind of, if you're a good, typer in your notes on your phone, I would do that, or a notebook if you like, the pen and paper type of thing. But I encourage you to take a few minutes as we go through some of these slides to actually start writing down some things. You can definitely do bullets or at least things to, at least things to think about. or things that you would respond to further about these questions so that you could, do some free writing later. Because I can tell you, the questions that I'm about to present to you, about the different areas that we talked about in that colorful Vennish type of diagram, are questions that you are going to answer in someplace in your primary application. Anywhere from the primary app to your secondary app to even how you communicate it verbally in your interview. So hugely encourage just getting it out on paper and then you using all of the things that you write, reusing them, putting them in the HPA, using the HPA as a way to prepare your personal statement and etc. And then as we go through some of these questions, we can also walk around the room and answer any other questions. And so we'll kind of float. So if you have a question or want to have something a little bit more explained, then you can do that. Okay, so academic curiosities. Let's start with this section. So what subjects and topics have you found most interesting? And I would say, generally speaking, think beyond the classes that, of course, you are required to take, right? So we know we have the prereqs, you're gonna have some sense of biological basics. Now, there might be topics within that are a little bit more specific that you have found yourself more curious about and investigated, having a curiosity about. Also then, why did you choose your major? And then, are there other activities and experiences you have engaged in to expand your knowledge about topics and subjects you enjoy, whether here or in another institution in the summers during the semester? So I'm gonna give you about like 1 minute per slide. So again, not perfect, just jot it down there. I would put some thinking music, but I'm scared to like mess with the laptop and. Let's see.
Don't do it.
Huh?
Don't do it.
Like, what do you call this thing? Like spring coffee ambiance. Let's see. Okay. All right. If we go to past personal experiences, what are 1 to 2 specific and significant personal experiences that have sparked your curiosity in science and medicine? And do you have any experiences, hobbies, and interests before college that have contributed to your interest in healthcare, medicine, healthcare and medicine? If so, how? Okay, keep working. Personal identities and impactful experiences. So this area you want to talk about or answer the question of what aspects of your backgrounds, events, or identities influence your values and beliefs, and how are they connected to how you see yourself within medicine? And then how have you handled adversity or setbacks? Can you show how you've demonstrated resilience and growth? Okay, collegiate experiences. What courses, this is kind of repetitive from the first one too, or experiences outside of the classroom have significantly influenced your interest in healthcare, medicine, and dentistry? And then what role has research, community service, clinical experiences played in igniting or confirming your interest in healthcare, medicine, or dentistry? So this question actually looks a lot like a question, the self-assessment piece in the HPA, which is something you are going to have to definitely defend as you apply, particularly in secondaries when schools ask you how you see yourself building a sense of community, why is community of interest to you in terms of health, if there's particular focus areas or objectives in their vision that they will ask you about how you will contribute to that. Also, you will be able to get secondary help through the Writing Center as well. They have made their services available for the summer. So we will also send that out as it gets closer. Your tuition dollars put to work. Okay, for the sake of time, keep thinking about these things. I'm going to go through a couple more slides and then I have a last announcement before you go. Okay, so the encouragement is to keep, I can actually pause this music. You can continue your coffee writing at home. Okay. Oops, here it is. Nope, that's the screen. All right, here we are. Okay, so keep free writing, highly encourage free writing because the more that you have, the more you have to work with and all of the pieces that you have to write. This is probably one of the most writing intensive processes that you have for an admissions process. Graduate school doesn't even look like this. Like med school wants to know all your business, everything, okay? Dentistry, they want to know everything. So you need to get in the practice of being able to not just communicate what you've done, but how you've done it, how you've thought about it, your internal thoughts, your feelings, how you've perceived, how you've grown, all of these things, right? And so you want to keep asking yourself a lot of these questions and just free writing them to see what comes out of it. And if you were to just answer this, how would you answer this? So we encourage you to do this. And then draw connections to your why. So here's the big piece that we're about to talk about is how do you make sure that you are aware of the different competencies that you should be reflecting in all of your writing pieces, right? So the AAMC AMCAS has experience types, right? So you're going to be categorizing these experiences, and we've talked a lot about this in 201 and personal and in one-on-one appointments. The big piece is that you are using those experiences to help showcase your professional and then thinking, reasoning, and science core competencies, right? The nice thing is that AAMC, if you go to the QR code, they've actually, or Google it, they actually have broken down the meaning and how they are essentially defining those things, that this is like legit a rubric, right? Now, medical admissions, and health professions admissions doesn't mean that or it's not looking for you to exhibit all of these things 100% of the time, all through your application, right? To the degree, some of these things are our strengths, and some things we've had some familiarity and some practice, but we wouldn't necessarily choose it as our strengths. That is okay, right? The goal is that you have seen most of, if not all of these competencies to some degree exhibited throughout your experiences. And if you feel like you have not, the question becomes, do you need more time to do that? Or are you missing something or discounting something, and being able to communicate that? Is it just me, or is there like cigarette smoke that just? Yeah. Okay, I thought I was having a stroke, y'all. Yeah, but that was not good. They say like you have like weird smells when you have like strokes. No, you smell it too. Okay, just gotta make sure. Okay. Making sure nothing's burning up here. No. Okay. Experience mapping. So this is a concept that, if you've taken my intersection class, I also talked about it a little bit in pre-health 201, I think, where, if you like work out your process and make sure, or try to like see what themes you might have in your application. A lot of times I tell students, they can think of this mapping process as a way to figure that out. So you'll have all of these experiences at the bottom, right? The experiences are evidence of something that you've demonstrated. And then sometimes you'll have 2 or 3 experiences that exemplify a particular characteristic, quality, or skill that you have. So let's say advocate was one of the themes or pillar in your application. How have I demonstrated? Well, I've participated in HCC as a healthcare advocate. I've also done the Violet Project, where I've done some public health education, but also done some work around making sure that there's an awareness of reproductive health, or where they can find resources. I've also worked as a medical assistant, where I have been able to help communicate different things to the physician that the patient has communicated in some of the evaluative things. There might be some clubs that you've done on campus where you've raised awareness about
Yes,
particular
thank
things.
you.
Some others
It's
might.
783. Yeah.
Oh, we'll just make sure that's muted, so you know. Okay. Some people might have participated in maybe being an actual health advocate, like out in their gap year, they worked with a public health organization and then they worked in it. So they would have multiple experiences that have exemplified that they have not just been an advocate in a role, but have been in action, right? And so their theme as advocate would have justification by multiple experiences, right? So I encourage students to think about, well, if I want to say that I care about education within healthcare, do I have evidence for it? Maybe I've been a TA, maybe I've been a tutor. There's other things that can exemplify it. So this just helps you kind of ask yourself, do I have evidence for what I am claiming? Remember to use active verbs, strong action verbs, communication verbs, helping verbs, and instructional verbs are good ways to think about when you're writing your list of experiences and your personal statement. You have words that are showing again and not just telling. So it's not just I was a research assistant, but it's I composed XYZ in my role as, or something like that, right? I aided, I assessed, I clarified. So making sure as you talk about your responsibilities and your duties, you're telling us how you've done it. I know my Hopkins students love formulas, so a lot of times you don't have to say this exactly in your personal statement, but the goal is to answer the question of I want, will, look to be a physician who does what for whom because. Right? And you will exemplify that throughout the personal statement, and then you will have your experiences as evidence for how you've demonstrated it. Or as a physician, I look to, and some people have this line at somewhere in their personal statement, but it doesn't have to follow this exact thing, but this is the question you should be answering. Okay, so this is just an emphasis to use your resources, just reiterating all of the resources that were exampled in the or discussed in the beginning. Make sure to submit your close to personal draft to pre-prof. So have that draft looked at least 1 to 2 times before you're submitting it to us. The directions to where to submit that will be provided. And when you book an appointment, just make sure you submit that, 2 business days before. If you are having some challenges trying to figure out how to approach your your HPA, there is a video on Instagram called Utilizing the HPA to craft a distinctive narrative. You can use that resource as an additional piece. Use that resource as a resource, is redundant. Use that video as a resource to help guide you through your HPA process, but we will also have HPA drop-ins weekly. They already started last week and there's one tomorrow, and we will have them quite a bit. Again, the 4th week, we offer a few more sessions. The link to access this is only for EY26, so it's on for EY26 applicants. So you will see this on SMA. The link is on the private website as well. So you can feel free to come in. Now, HPA drop-ins are open drop-ins, so you don't meet one-on-one. It is for a time for questions to be asked in an open format, but regular drop-ins still continue, which are Wednesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 4. And that link is on Handshake. Okay. Any last minute questions? Do I have questions online that I need to answer?
Yes, you have 2 or 3 questions online. So I'm going to start with one that I got towards the very top. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to get to it. Are there any resources, for example, on personal statements, secondaries, or activity descriptions?
Are there any resources? Say that one more time. I had to turn you up.
No, it's okay. Are there any resources about personal statements, secondaries, or activity descriptions? And I think they meant just in general.
Yes, so on the EY26 private website, there is a tab, a module that says personal statement resources. There's their personal statements and MD-PhD essay examples to provide support. And then we have the feedback, and then we encourage you to use the Writing Center. Secondaries, the Pre-Health Academy last year did a secondaries synchronous online workshop, which I believe will be happening again, and we will just definitely email that information when we get that information.
Okay. Can I make a so I answered that. Okay. If we are an alum, are we still able to use the Writing Center?
Yes, you are able to use the Writing Center, so alumni have access to both advising and the Writing Center.
Do the advisors have May open yet?
No, because we can't think that far. We promise that our April advising appointments will likely be open within the next week. And then our May will probably be opened definitely by the 1st or 2nd week of April. Because life.
And just to clarify for my audience, this is just normal, nothing special or fancy. They have to do in handshake. It's just a normal handshake. And they should just put in the comments that's for the personal statement review.
Correct. All you do is make a regular appointment on Handshake and say personal statement, and then you have to email the person you are seeing the personal statement two business days before.
Where can we get the password for the private site?
On SMA under the info page. So at the top right of the banner, it says pages. If you click on it, it'll say info page and you'll see it. I think it's about 7 places on SMA. So if you also look at some of the information on your SurveyMonkey apply, you'll see the EY26 private website password.
Cool. I also put it in the chat just in case. I know,
All right.
Jill, I'll get in a second, baby.
Yeah. Is that all?
The person who asked about the secondaries, their internet cut out when you were answering that question. Do you mind repeating that one more time?
There will be secondary support through the Pre-Health Academy, and we will also send out that email via, we will send that via email when that becomes available, but the Writing Center also provides Writing Center, support on writing secondaries.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, online people, we're all set? Okay, so my in-person people, okay, you can stop recording.